My child, before you do anything else, before you skip these words, before you tell yourself that this message is meant for someone else, I need you to stop for a moment and listen carefully. Because tonight, I am not speaking to the crowd. I am speaking to you. Yes, you. The one sitting alone right now. The one pretending to be okay. The one carrying a weight nobody knows about. The one who smiled today while hiding tears behind that smile. The one who keeps telling people, I'm fine, when deep inside, you are not fine at all. My child, I saw you crying, not the tears you showed the world, not the tears you quickly wiped away before someone noticed. I saw the tears that nobody else saw, the tears that fell in the darkness, the tears that landed on your pillow at 2 o'clock in the morning, the tears that came after everyone else went to sleep, the tears that came when your heart finally became too tired to pretend. I saw them all, every single one. And tonight, I want you to know something. You were never crying alone, because while you were crying, I was there. When the room felt empty, I was there. When nobody answered your call, I was there. When nobody understood your pain, I understood. When you whispered, God, where are you? I heard every word, even the words you never spoke out loud, because I hear the cries that never leave your lips. I hear the prayers hidden inside broken hearts. I hear the pain that people bury deep inside themselves. And my child, your pain has never been invisible to me, not for 1 second. But I know what you're thinking. If you were there, why did it hurt so much? Why didn't you stop it? Why didn't you fix it? Why didn't you answer immediately? Those questions have been living inside your heart for a long time, haven't they? Maybe longer than anyone knows, maybe longer than you realize. And tonight, I want to tell you a story about a man who asked me the same questions, a man who thought I had forgotten him, a man who believed heaven had gone silent, a man whose life looked perfectly normal on the outside, but was completely falling apart on the inside. His name doesn't matter, because his story might be your story. Every morning he woke up before sunrise. Every morning he put on a smile. Every morning he went to work. People respected him. People admired him. People thought he had everything together. But nobody knew the truth. Nobody knew that every night. He sat alone in his apartment staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep, unable to rest, unable to silence the thoughts inside his mind, the fear, the anxiety, the loneliness, the questions, the pain. Nobody knew, because pain is strange. Sometimes the people who are hurting the most become experts at hiding it. And my child, maybe you've become an expert too. Maybe people look at you and think you're strong. Maybe they think you're doing fine. Maybe they think you're happy. But I know the truth, because I see what nobody else sees. I see the moments when your smile disappears. I see the moments when you sit alone. I see the moments when your thoughts become heavy. I see the moments when your heart starts asking questions. Questions you are afraid to say out loud. Questions like, why do I still feel empty? Why am I still hurting? Why does it feel like everyone else is moving forward while I'm standing still? Why do I feel forgotten? Why do I feel alone? And perhaps the hardest question of all, God, do you even see me? Listen carefully, because the answer is yes. I see you. I have always seen you, even when nobody else did. There was one night, that man sat alone in his living room. The clock on the wall read 2:17 a.m. Outside, rain was falling. Inside, silence filled the room. His phone sat beside him. No messages, no calls, no notifications, nothing. And suddenly, all the emotions he had been holding back for years came crashing down. He broke. Not physically, emotionally, spiritually, completely. He buried his face in his hands and cried. Not a few tears, not silent tears, deep tears, the kind that come from years of pain, the kind that come when a heart finally reaches its limit. And as he sat there crying, he said something simple, something honest, something desperate. He whispered, "God, if you're really there, please show me." That was all. One sentence, one prayer, one cry from a broken heart. And then, nothing happened. At least that's what he thought. No angel appeared. No voice spoke from heaven. No miracle happened instantly. Just silence. And so he assumed I wasn't listening. But my child, what he didn't know was that everything had already started changing. Because sometimes I begin working the moment you stop pretending, the moment you become honest, the moment you stop trying to look strong, the moment you finally admit, I need help. Something powerful happens, and maybe tonight. That's why you're here. Not by accident, not by coincidence, but because somewhere deep inside, your soul is searching for peace, searching for answers, searching for hope, searching for me. And the beautiful thing is, I've been searching for you too, for a long time, long before you clicked on this message, long before this night, long before this moment. I have been calling your name, quietly, patiently, lovingly, waiting for you to hear my voice. Because, my child, you have been carrying something that was never meant to be carried alone. You've been carrying pain. You've been carrying fear. You've been carrying disappointment. You've been carrying heartbreak. You've been carrying wounds nobody knows about. And you're exhausted, aren't you? Not physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. Tired of fighting, tired of hoping, tired of pretending, tired of being strong, tired of holding everything together. And some days, you don't even know why you're tired. You just know that you are. Because pain has weight, fear has weight, loneliness has weight, and you've been carrying all of it by yourself. But tonight, I want you to hear something. You don't have to carry it anymore. You don't. Because I am here. I have always been here. And I am not leaving. Not now. Not tomorrow. Not ever. My child, there is something you must understand. The enemy wants you to believe that your tears mean weakness. But that is a lie. Your tears are proof that you've been fighting. Your tears are proof that you've survived. Your tears are proof that your heart still feels. And every tear you've cried, I have counted. Every single one. Not one has been wasted. Not one has been forgotten. Not one has gone unseen. Because every tear tells a story of survival, a story of endurance, a story of courage, a story that is still being written. And my child, your story is not over, not even close. In fact, the chapter you're living through right now is not the end. It's the beginning of something you cannot see yet. Something bigger, something beautiful, something that will make sense one day, even if it doesn't make sense tonight. Because right now, you're standing in the middle of the story, and people in the middle of the story rarely understand the ending. But I do. I see the ending. I see the healing. I see the breakthrough. I see the restoration. I see the joy that's coming. I see the peace waiting ahead. I see the person you're becoming. And my child, you are becoming stronger than you realize. Every battle has changed you. Every disappointment has taught you. Every tear has shaped you. Every storm has prepared you. Even the storms you hated. Even the storms you begged me to remove. Even the storms that nearly broke you. Because some lessons can only be learned in the rain, and some strength can only be built in the storm. My child, there is something I haven't told you yet, something that many people never realize. The nights that almost broke you were the nights I was carrying you the closest. I know that sounds impossible, because when pain becomes unbearable, it feels like I am far away. When prayers seem unanswered, it feels like heaven has gone silent. When life doesn't make sense, it feels like I have disappeared. But my child, feelings are not always truth, and one of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that my presence depends on what they feel. It doesn't. I am with you even when you cannot feel me. I am working even when you cannot see me. I am speaking even when you cannot hear me. And tonight, I want to take you back to one of the hardest moments of your life. You know the one, the moment you thought would destroy you, the moment that changed everything, the moment you never talk about. Maybe it was a breakup, maybe it was a betrayal, maybe it was a loss, maybe it was a phone call that shattered your world, maybe it was a diagnosis, maybe it was a goodbye you never saw coming. Whatever it was, I was there. I saw the exact moment your heart broke. I saw the confusion in your eyes. I saw the questions racing through your mind. I saw the tears, and I heard the words you never said out loud, because sometimes the deepest prayers are never spoken. Sometimes they are felt. And my child, I felt every ounce of your pain. There was a young woman who spent years praying for something, every night, every morning, every chance she had. She asked me for the same thing. She believed. She trusted. She waited. Months passed, then years. Still nothing. Eventually, she stopped expecting an answer. She didn't stop believing in me, but she stopped believing that her situation would ever change. Maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you've prayed for something for so long that you've grown tired of asking, tired of hoping, tired of waiting. And now, you've started expecting disappointment. You don't pray with excitement anymore. You pray with caution, because you're afraid of getting hurt again. But my child, what if I told you that some prayers are not delayed because I ignored them? What if they are delayed because I am preparing something bigger than what you imagined? You see, humans see moments. I see the entire story. You see today's pain. I see tomorrow's purpose. You see closed doors. I see protection. You see delays. I see preparation. And sometimes, the thing you call a setback is actually my hand guiding you towards something greater. I know that's difficult to understand, especially when you're hurting, especially when you're waiting, especially when you're tired. But trust me, there are things happening right now that you cannot see, conversations you don't know about, doors opening behind the scenes, people being positioned, opportunities being prepared, miracles being formed. And while you think nothing is happening, heaven is moving. My child, the enemy wants you to believe that waiting means abandonment. But waiting does not mean abandonment. A seed waits beneath the soil before it becomes a tree. The sunrise waits beyond the darkness before it lights the sky. And some miracles wait until the perfect moment before they arrive. The problem is, people often leave moments before the breakthrough comes. They quit too soon. They surrender too soon. They stop believing too soon. And the enemy loves that, because if he can convince you to quit, he never has to fight your future. But tonight, I need you to hear me. Do not quit. Not now. Not when you've come this far. Not when your story is still unfolding. Not when your breakthrough may be closer than you think, because there is something ahead of you that the enemy cannot stop, something he fears, something he knows will change you forever. That is why you've been attacked so heavily. That is why fear keeps showing up. That is why anxiety keeps knocking on your door. Because darkness is terrified of who you're becoming. You think you're weak, but heaven sees strength. You think you're failing, but heaven sees growth. You think you're lost, but heaven sees direction. And one day, you will look back at this season and realize something incredible. The thing you thought was destroying you was actually transforming you. My child, have you ever noticed something? Gold is refined in fire, diamonds are formed under pressure, and strong faith is often built in difficult seasons. I know you don't like the fire. I know you don't like the pressure. I know you don't like the waiting. But don't mistake discomfort for destruction. Sometimes growth feels uncomfortable. Sometimes healing feels painful. Sometimes transformation feels lonely. But that doesn't mean you're being abandoned. It means you're changing. And change is rarely comfortable. There was a night when that man I told you about earlier sat in complete darkness. No television, no music, no distractions, just silence. And for the first time in years, he allowed himself to be honest, not with other people, with himself. He finally admitted something. He wasn't angry because life was difficult. He was angry because he felt forgotten. Maybe you've felt that too. Maybe you've looked around and wondered why everyone else seems blessed, why everyone else seems happy, why everyone else seems to be moving forward, while you're stuck, waiting, struggling, hurting, and secretly asking, "What about me?" My child, I hear that question more than you know, and I want to answer it tonight. You are not forgotten. You never were. You never will be. Just because your journey looks different doesn't mean it's worse. Just because your blessing hasn't arrived yet doesn't mean it's not coming. Just because the answer hasn't appeared yet doesn't mean I said no. Some of the most beautiful stories begin in seasons of uncertainty, and your story is one of them. Because right now, you only see the pages filled with pain, but I can already see the pages filled with joy. You only see the storm. I can already see the rainbow. You only see the valley. I can already see the mountain. And one day, you'll see it too. My child, I need you to stop measuring your future by your current circumstances, because your circumstances are temporary. They are not your identity. They are not your destiny. They are simply a chapter, and chapters change. Storms pass. Nights end, seasons shift, pain heals, and lives transform, including yours. Right now, there are people listening to these words who feel exhausted, not because they're lazy, not because they're weak, but because they've been carrying invisible burdens, burdens nobody sees, burdens nobody understands, burdens they never talk about, the burden of anxiety, the burden of regret, the burden of loneliness, the burden of disappointment, the burden of wondering if things will ever get better. And my child, you've carried those burdens long enough. Tonight, I am asking you to place them in my hands, not tomorrow, not next week, tonight, because I can carry what you cannot. I can heal what you cannot. I can restore what you thought was lost forever, and I can bring beauty from places you thought were ruined. Nothing is impossible for me, not your situation, not your pain, not your future, nothing. So when fear tells you, it's too late, remember my voice. When anxiety tells you, it will never change, remember my voice. When darkness tells you, give up, remember my voice, because my voice says, there is still hope, there is still purpose, there is still healing, There is still time, and there is still a future waiting for you, a future brighter than you can imagine. But before that future arrives, there is one more truth I need you to understand. The tears you cried in secret were never signs of weakness. They were seeds, seeds of compassion, seeds of wisdom, seeds of strength, seeds that are growing into something beautiful. And one day, those tears will help heal someone else's heart. One day, your survival will inspire someone else's courage. One day, your story will become proof that I never abandoned you. But that day is still ahead. For now, keep walking, keep trusting, keep believing, even when you don't understand, even when you don't see the outcome, even when the road feels long. Because, my child, I am closer than you think, closer than your next breath, closer than your next heartbeat, closer than the fears trying to convince you otherwise. And tonight, while the world sleeps, I am still writing your story, a story that is far from over, a story that is moving toward healing, a story that is moving toward peace, a story that is moving toward purpose. And in part 3, I will show you something most people never realize. My child, there is something many people never understand while they are living through pain. They believe the hardest seasons of their lives are punishment. They believe the silence means abandonment. They believe the darkness means defeat. But often, the exact opposite is true, because some of the darkest nights of your life were never meant to destroy you. They were preparing you for a version of yourself you have not met yet. And tonight, I want to show you something that has been hidden from your eyes, something that was happening behind the scenes while you were crying, something that was happening while you thought nothing was changing. My child, every storm leaves something behind. Every storm. Some storms leave destruction, but some storms leave strength. And the storm you've been walking through has been building strength inside you that you cannot see yet. Think about who you were 5 years ago. Think about the things that used to break you, the things that used to terrify you, the things that used to make you quit. Now look at yourself. You're still standing. You've survived things you once believed would destroy you. You've survived heartbreak. You've survived rejection. You've survived disappointment. You've survived loneliness. You've survived nights when you didn't think you could keep going. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still fighting, still listening, still hoping. Do you know what that means? It means you're stronger than you think, far stronger. But the enemy doesn't want you to know that. He wants you focused on your weaknesses, your mistakes, your fears, your failures. Because if he can keep you staring at what is behind you, you'll never discover what is ahead of you. And my child, what is ahead of you is greater than you realize, much greater. There was a young man who spent years feeling invisible. Every day he woke up feeling like nobody noticed him. Nobody appreciated him. Nobody understood him. He worked hard. He tried his best. He prayed. He hoped. But nothing seemed to change. And eventually, he stopped expecting anything good to happen. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you're there now. Maybe you've spent so much time being disappointed that you've become afraid to hope, afraid to dream, afraid to believe. Because disappointment hurts. And after enough disappointment, people start protecting themselves from hope. They lower their expectations. They stop asking. They stop believing. Not because they're weak, but because they're tired. My child, I know you're tired. I know. I know what it feels like when you've been strong for too long. I know what it feels like when you've carried burdens nobody else understands. I know what it feels like when you're exhausted from fighting battles nobody can see, because I have been with you through every one of them. And tonight, I want you to hear me clearly. Your exhaustion is not the end of your story. Your tears are not the end of your story. Your pain is not the end of your story. The chapter you're in right now is temporary. Temporary. Read that again in your heart. Temporary. Because one of the greatest lies fear ever tells is this. This is how your life will always be. But fear lies. It always has, and it always will. Fear told you that you wouldn't survive, yet you're still here. Fear told you that your future was ruined, yet your future still exists. Fear told you that nobody cared, yet I have cared every single day. Fear told you that you were alone, yet I have never left your side. Fear told you that the darkness would last forever, yet morning is already on its way. My child, there are things happening right now that you cannot see. Blessings moving toward you, healing moving toward you, answers moving toward you, opportunities moving toward you, people moving toward you, doors opening that you don't even know exist yet. Because while you've been worrying about what is happening in front of you, I have been working beyond what you can see, and I never stop working. Not for a second, not for a moment, even during the nights when heaven felt silent, even during the days when you felt forgotten, even during the moments when you questioned everything. I was working, quietly, patiently, perfectly, because my timing is different from yours. You want immediate answers, immediate healing, immediate breakthroughs, immediate miracles. But my child, some blessings require preparation, because if I gave you certain things before you were ready, they would destroy you instead of helping you. There are prayers you prayed years ago that I could not answer immediately, not because I didn't care, but because you weren't ready. The people weren't ready. The timing wasn't ready. The circumstances weren't ready. But now, things are beginning to move. Slowly, quietly, behind the scenes. And one day you'll look back and realize the delay wasn't punishment. The delay was protection. My child, have you ever watched a caterpillar become a butterfly? From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. Everything seems still. Everything seems quiet. Everything seems hidden. But inside, transformation is taking place. And when the process is complete, the butterfly emerges completely different than before. Beautiful, stronger, able to fly. What if you're in a season like that right now? What if the reason life feels confusing is because transformation is happening? What if the reason things feel uncomfortable is because you're growing? What if the reason you don't recognize yourself anymore is because you're becoming who I created you to be? Think about that. Because growth is rarely comfortable, transformation is rarely easy, but both are necessary. And my child, you are transforming. Even when you don't realize it, every challenge has taught you something. Every tear has taught you something. Every disappointment has taught you something. Every heartbreak has taught you something. And all those lessons are becoming wisdom. Wisdom that will guide you. Wisdom that will protect you. Wisdom that will help others one day. Because your pain is not meaningless. Nothing you've suffered has been meaningless. Nothing. I know there were nights when it felt meaningless. I know there were moments when you couldn't understand why things were happening. I know there were seasons when you wanted answers. But answers often come later. Understanding often comes later. Clarity often comes later. And one day, you will see what I see. You'll see how every piece fit together. You'll see how every setback redirected you. You'll see how every closed door protected you. You'll see how every delay prepared you. You'll see how every tear watered the soil for something beautiful. And you'll realize, I was never absent. I was present the entire time. My child, there is another reason I wanted you to hear this tonight, because some of you listening are carrying guilt. Guilt from years ago, mistakes you can't forget, decisions you regret, moments you wish you could erase. And every time you start moving forward, the past tries to pull you backward. Every time you begin healing, old memories return. Every time you begin hoping, old shame appears. But listen carefully. The enemy wants you trapped in yesterday. I am calling you toward tomorrow. The enemy wants you staring at your failures. I am looking at your future. The enemy reminds you of who you were. I remind you of who you are becoming. Because your mistakes are not your identity. Your failures are not your identity. Your worst moments are not your identity. You are not defined by what happened. You are defined by who I say you are. And I say you are loved. I say you are chosen. I say you are valuable. I say you are not forgotten. I say your life still has purpose, and no mistake is bigger than my grace. None, not one. My child, the chapter ahead of you is different. I need you to believe that, because right now, you're standing at a turning point. You may not feel it, you may not see it, but you're closer than you think, closer to healing, closer to peace, closer to freedom, closer to the breakthrough you've been praying for. And the reason the battle has become so intense lately is because you're approaching something significant. Darkness always fights hardest when it knows its time is running out. That's why fear has been so loud. That's why anxiety has been so persistent. That's why doubt keeps showing up, because the enemy senses what is coming. But my child, he cannot stop what I have planned. He cannot stop your purpose. He cannot stop your healing. He cannot stop your future. He can only try to convince you to quit before you get there. So don't quit. Not now. Not when you're this close. Not when your story is about to change. Because part 4 is where everything comes together. The chapter where I reveal why your tears mattered, why your waiting mattered, why your pain wasn't wasted, and why the miracle you've been searching for may already be closer than you think. My child, if you have stayed with me this far, then I want you to know something. This is not an accident. You were meant to hear these words, not tomorrow, not next week, tonight. Because tonight, I want to tell you something your heart has needed to hear for a very long time. The tears you cried were never wasted. Not one tear, not one sleepless night, not one moment of heartbreak, not one prayer whispered into the darkness, not one silent cry. I saw all of it, and I have been using every piece of it to shape your future. I know there were nights when you felt abandoned, nights when the silence felt unbearable, nights when you stared at the ceiling asking questions that seemed to have no answers. Questions like, why is this happening to me? Will things ever get better? Does anybody even care? God, where are you? My child, I was there. I was there when your voice shook. I was there when your heart broke. I was there when the tears wouldn't stop. And I was there during the moments when you stopped crying because you were simply too exhausted to cry anymore. I never left. Not for a second. Not for a moment. Not even during the times when you thought I had. Because my love does not depend on your circumstances. My presence does not disappear when life becomes difficult, and my faithfulness does not end when your strength runs out. My child, There is a reason I allowed you to walk through certain valleys. Not because I wanted to hurt you, not because I wanted to punish you, but because there were things you could only learn there. There are strengths that can only be discovered in weakness. There is faith that can only be built in uncertainty. There is courage that can only be born in fear. And there is wisdom that often grows from pain. I know you wish some chapters never happened. I know there are memories you wish you could erase. I know there are people you wish had never hurt you. I know there are losses you still don't fully understand. But listen carefully. Even the chapters you would remove from your story helped create the person you are becoming. Because pain changed you, but it didn't destroy you. Heartbreak wounded you, but it didn't end you. Disappointment shook you, but it didn't defeat you. Look at yourself. You're still here. After everything you've been through, you're still here. That is not weakness. That is strength. That is resilience. That is proof that I have been carrying you all along. My child, there was a woman who spent years believing she had been forgotten. Every day looked the same. Every prayer seemed unanswered. Every dream felt farther away. She smiled in public. She laughed when people expected her to laugh. But every night, she cried. And one evening she asked me a question many people ask. She said, "God, if you really love me, why do I feel so alone?" And for a long time, she thought there was no answer. But years later, when her life had completely changed, she looked back and realized something. Every moment she thought she was alone, I had been preparing her for people she hadn't met yet, preparing her for opportunities she couldn't see yet, preparing her for blessings she wasn't ready to receive yet. And suddenly, the pain that once seemed meaningless made sense. My child, one day that will happen for you too. One day you'll look back at this season and understand things that seem confusing right now. You'll understand why some people left. You'll understand why some doors closed. You'll understand why some prayers were delayed. You'll understand why some battles lasted longer than expected. And when you do, you'll see my fingerprints all over your story. You'll realize I was guiding you even when you felt lost, protecting you even when you felt vulnerable, leading you even when you couldn't see the path. My child, there is something else I need you to know. The future you've been fearing is not as frightening as your imagination has made it seem. Fear has a way of creating stories about failure, stories about rejection, stories about disaster, stories about everything that could go wrong. And if you're not careful, those stories become prisons. But most of the things you've worried about never happened. Most of the fears that stole your sleep never became reality. Most of the disasters your mind imagined never arrived. Fear is a liar. And tonight, its hold on you is breaking. Because I did not create you to live trapped by fear. I created you to live in freedom. Freedom from constant worry. Freedom from endless anxiety. Freedom from the chains of the past. Freedom from the voices that keep telling you you're not enough. My child, you are enough. Not because you're perfect. Not because you've never failed. Not because you've never made mistakes. But because you are loved. And my love changes everything. The world measures value by success. I measure value by the heart. The world celebrates appearance. I see the soul. The world looks at what people have done. I look at who they can become. And when I look at you, I see possibility. I see purpose. I see destiny. I see a future that is still unfolding. My child, The enemy spent years trying to convince you that your story was ending, but he was wrong. Your story is not ending. It is beginning again. A new chapter, a new season, a new level of peace, a new level of faith, a new level of healing. You may not see it yet, but it is coming, slowly, quietly, surely, like the sunrise. The sunrise never rushes. It arrives exactly when it's supposed to, and no darkness can stop it. That's what is happening in your life right now. The darkness is ending, the light is coming, and the dawn is closer than you think. My child, remember the man I told you about? The one sitting alone at 2:17 in the morning. The one who thought I had forgotten him. Years later, he would tell people something remarkable. He would say, "The miracle wasn't that God changed my circumstances first. The miracle was that God changed me." Because before his situation improved, his heart healed. Before the doors opened, peace arrived. Before the answers came, faith returned. And once faith returned, everything looked different. The storm wasn't controlling him anymore. Fear wasn't controlling him anymore. The future wasn't controlling him anymore. Because he finally understood something. He was never alone. And my child, neither are you. You never have been. You never will be. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not in the years ahead. Because I walk with you. Through every valley. Through every storm. Through every heartbreak. Through every victory. Through every chapter. And I will continue walking beside you long after this season is over. So tonight, I want you to release the weight you've been carrying. Release the guilt. Release the shame. Release the anxiety. Release the fear. Release the heartbreak. Release the disappointment. Place it in my hands. You were never meant to carry it alone. Let me carry it. Let me heal it. Let me restore it. Because healing begins when surrender begins. And tonight, your healing begins. Not because all your problems disappeared. Not because every question was answered. But because your heart is finally remembering the truth. You are loved. You are seen. You are known. You are valued. You are protected. You are chosen. And most importantly, you are not alone. So when this message ends and the room becomes quiet again, remember this moment. There are still blessings ahead, still miracles ahead, still joy ahead, still healing ahead, still purpose ahead, still beautiful chapters waiting to be written. My child, the tears were real, the pain was real, the heartbreak was real, but my love is real too, and my love is greater than all of it. So sleep peacefully tonight, breathe deeply tonight, hope again tonight, dream again tonight, trust again tonight, because I am still writing your story, and the next chapter will be more beautiful than you can imagine. I saw you crying when nobody else did. I stayed when others left. I listened when nobody understood. I carried you when you were too weak to stand. And I will continue carrying you until the day you finally see what I have always seen. A beautiful future, a healed heart, a stronger faith, and a life filled with purpose. My child, look at me. Listen carefully. You survived. You made it this far, and you're going to make it farther, because I am with you, always, even now, especially now. And one day, you will understand why you had to walk through the darkness, because it taught you how precious the light truly is. Until then, keep walking, keep believing, keep trusting, and whenever tears return, remember this: I see them, I hear them, I count them, and I love you more than you know. Amen.